So I do have a background in education, and then I really love, my college degree was in history, and my minor was in sciences, but I really love history. And from the time I graduated to now, I would have to read every day. I mean, if you ask me what I'm reading today, I may have 5 or 6 books spread throughout the house, which are all in history. And it could be different times, different eras, but I can stop. So, let's see what else I wanted to tell you. The music you were hearing that I was going to ask Stephen to stop was the Monteverdi's El Orfeo. So why did I choose Monteverdi? Because Monteverdi happens to be a Baroque musician. And I figure, okay, we're talking about Baroque art and a little more about Renaissance, but if you hear the music, you say, oh wow, so the music that Caravaggio, when he turned on the radio, could listen to, it would be operas like this one. El Orfeo was really recognized and appreciated for quite a few centuries too. So even though he didn't write the first opera, he was so successful that he gets credit for some of the best operas of the history of opera. So that was the background music. Why am I here? I have always been fascinated by Caravaggio, especially because about a year ago and during the fall, I taught a Kino Institute class in the diocese for deacons, seminarians, and things like that on the history of the church. In 6 weeks, we put 2,000 years of history. I was crying. But when we got to the time of the Renaissance and the Baroque, I used the pictures from Caravaggio and said, wow, there's so much that I actually learned at that time. So really, I kind of loved the guy, the bad and the good. And then when I started visiting the Sacred Art Gallery, I met Stephen and Marcus. I noticed a few Caravaggios on the walls, and I said, hey, I really like to talk about this guy. Have you had anybody who presents or talk about things like that? So it was kind of a little collaboration and an opportunity for me to hear myself talk, sorry, and for everybody else to visit the place and really enjoy the quality of the artwork in this venue. So I thank Marcus, Stephen for giving me the opportunity, and the Sacred Art Gallery for the venue that I think is ideal over here. If I have a funny accent, it's because I was born in Puerto Rico. So I hope, well, so I hope it doesn't block or obstruct the understanding. I am trying to cover Caravaggio's time, and I'm going to use this map just a few times for reference, but I do have a few other things that I wanted to show you as I go through the show. So I'm going to start with a couple of terms. I really like being careful with the vocabulary we use. Renaissance, we know it's 14th century to early 17th century for those of you or me who care about the numbers. But what I like about the definition of Renaissance is interest in classical antiquity with Rome and Greece, and we know that that was the culture that was brought in. It started in Italy, but also that it was not only rebirth, but idealization. If you look at the Renaissance art, it's perfectly beautiful. It's really very, very attractive to see. And wanted to compare with Baroque art, which at the time when it came out, which is 17th century to the 18th century, you know, in continuation with the Renaissance, it's a little different. It's a dramatic style with intense emotion, movement, and I hope that you see the contrast between one and the other. What I will try to do in this hour or so is give you a brief geography idea where we are. Talk a little about the tools that the artist used. I just chose 3 colors that I think have so much history. Hey, why not share with you? So, you know, for your next trivia game, you may have some stuff here. A quick look through the old masters so that I can make a comparison between what Renaissance and accepted art was as we go into the Baroque. The big stumbling block in the middle of this season of the Renaissance, Protestant Reformation, and the answers of the Council of Trent were very impactful because the Council of Trent recognized that art is such an instructional material, such a didactic material, that it's about time we use it to help us counter these ideas from the Reformation, at least the ideas that were wrong. At the end, I'm going to go through the life of Caravaggio. So if you bear with me, I do move a little, but I'll try to stay out of the area of the images. Okay, map of Europe. You know, Italy at this time is a bunch of little city-states. It's fragments, it's republics, kingdoms, just little things that are kind of trapped from around these giants. The Holy Roman Empire, huge. Oh, every now and then threatening to come in. The Ottoman Empire on the other side, close, always a threat to Italy. And France, Spain, and England are kingdoms, well-defined nations. The other thing that this era is bringing up is this is the era of exploration. So we see that particularly countries like Spain and Portugal are spreading around the world and bringing something new to this era of the Renaissance. So this is the one I'm concerned about right now. We are talking about the Spaniards traveling all the way to the Atlantic, and if you recall, 1517 or therefore around there, the Hernán Cortés, a Spanish explorer and conquistador, starts going into the Caribbean, and by 1519 goes into Mexico. So what does this have to do with art and so on? Well, he has discovered in Mexico something that's very valuable. He arrives in 1519, and by 1521 he has destroyed the Aztec Empire. Okay, I can answer your question about what happened there, but they are not as pertinent as what I'm trying to show you here. This is a skin painted from the Aztec Empire that caught the eye of some of the conquistadors. What is the predominant color here? Red. Thank you. Okay, so this is interesting because when Hernán Cortés came to Tenochtitlan, came to the city of Mexico, he saw all these monuments with bright colors. Among them, it was red. The decorations, the figures, it was red. So he was saying, wow, this is really good. Of course, he's interested in gold. That's one of the callings for the expeditions. And becoming wealthy, that's part of what they want to do. And of course, eventually convert the natives to Christianity. But that red stays in the mind of Hernán Cortés, and he says, well, where is this coming from? Well, guess what? The red is because of this little bug. I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but you probably have seen this, right? That's your prickly pear cactus. And when you see them with this white stuff, what comes to mind? The bugs are eating them. So this is Dactylopius coccus, I think is the scientific name of the bug. It's a very small beetle. This little beetle is female is this one, males are that one, short life, but when they come into contact with this cactus, they eat it. The white stuff is kind of a protection so that they are safe. What the Aztec indigenous people discover is that if you scrape that white, you're gonna get these little bugs. If you press one of these little bugs, you're gonna get a red stain. It so happens that the defense mechanism of the female bug is carminic acid. Okay, so that's how they defend themselves from other creatures. But what an explorer, or what the Aztecs realize is, hey, I can paint, I can dye costumes, feathers, do the mosaics and things like that, where you can paint frescoes and the like. So the Spaniards are going to send gold and many discoveries to Europe, but among them they send batches of, hey, look at this red dye that we found. It's all these little creatures, and it was basically what you collect is the little creatures. You dry them up, and then when you crush them, you make powder, and you mix it with oils, or a binder, if you're gonna do textiles, to paint this red. As soon as it goes and lands in Spain, the merchants and artists start realizing that red is better than the red we get over here. Oh my goodness, how much we're gonna pay for it. So the Spaniards are gonna get rich from gold, but the second source of income is that red. Another color, so that was called cochineal red, or today's carmine red, and it was very expensive. This one over here is called, anybody know? Lapis lazuli, thank you. Sister, you taught me so well. Lapis lazuli is a mineral that it's really mixed with other different minerals in there. So it's not that easy to turn into paint. But the funny thing is that it comes from Afghanistan. Mines that are there, which is about here, right in the on the path of the so-called Silk Road. So while silk is coming from China to Europe, and in half the distance, the lapis lazuli trade routes also bring it over here. So what means is that lapis lazuli gets to Venice after going through all this path, after crossing these seas, Black Sea, Caspian Sea. It's what makes ultramarine blue. Why is ultramarine blue called ultramarine? It's not because of the sky or the sea. It's because it comes from beyond. Ultramarine is from beyond the seas. So this little rock, when crushed, and I do have some samples here for later if you want to see them, it makes a blue that's so intense and so bright that everybody in Europe wants it. But it's coming through Venice after arriving to all these places with all these intermediaries. Is Venice going to sell it for cheap? No, it's going to make a lot of money selling lapis lazuli. So that blue is going to be very expensive too, and the painters who can afford it will be using it, and the painters who get a good patron that has a lot of money are going to get it. So red, blue, one other color. This color has been known since the Roman times. As a matter of fact, lapis lazuli was known from the Egyptian times, but this one, from the Roman times, they know how to make lead white. As soon as you hear about lead, you know, okay, that's a poisonous material. Yes, it is. Lead poisoning has been happening through the ages, even though there is a demand for lead. Even to close to the 19th century, you still could buy lead white paint, especially artists were using it. But the way you make this is you put your lead close to a bath of acetic acid, surround it with manure, and close it in a room for 3 to 6 weeks. So the people who come in here, well, you know, they are not dressed like that because of COVID. They are really going through the smell to get this thing out. And then they have to collect all this dust, and then it's going to be crushed, mixed with the appropriate oils to make white paint. Was it a good paint? It was so good that all the way to the 19th century, lead white was still being used. This is our friend, the Mona Lisa. X-ray, that's how you restore paint. You do X-rays to see through it. Why is this so white? Because the X-ray cannot go through the lead, and that's proof that Da Vinci, wow, he really used lead white to add to the vibrancy of his painting. That one over there is the College of St. Matthew. Looking through an X-ray, you find also that for the creation of Peter, who's here, he used a lot of lead white. So these three colors are typical, well, somewhat typical, and yet what makes you realize how expensive it is to be a painter and what you have to do some of the painting, whether you're in the Renaissance or later. So, what I'm going to now. The Renaissance is famous for many types of art. There's mythological art, allegorical, historical art, portraits, and so on. So the artists that I chose here, I think, are the 4 best Renaissance artists, are Botticelli, Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael. Well, this is a Botticelli. I presume you know it's La Primavera. I mean, when you see the painting, I kind of really love this one. This is really nice. One of the characteristics of Botticelli's painting is that you can see the lines of the drawings. You know this stops here and there's another area over there. In other words, you have almost a detailed view of the individuals. Mythological painting, Leonardo da Vinci, a portrait, were popular at the time. School of Athens by Raphael. It's a historical event. But if you look at the paintings that seem to be coming over here, well, it seems that at least the historical, mythological, they were pretty paintings. They were colorful and so on. Well, when they paint religious paintings, it's the same too. This Botticelli painted 1480 to 1481. I don't know about you, but I really love the lines that, whoa, come back. The lines of the faces. I mean, these are pretty faces, the way he puts everything together. And you can tell that the backgrounds are bright, the whole composition is tight, but still, you know, it's a painting, and you see the artist even has taken attention to how to put it in a circular painting. It's said that many of the circular paintings were painted because the circle being so perfect enhances the work. This is also by Botticelli, the Entombment. I am putting this one here because I want to, when we get to the Caravaggio, compare it with Caravaggio's Entombment. When you see the Entombment, again, I see all the lines are clearly marked. You see the background. It's a bright, colorful picture. It still carries the emotion of the sadness of the moment, but you see it, and somebody in that time would see it and say, wow, this is a sad moment, but it's talking about the death of Christ. Da Vinci, he has John the Baptist, baby Jesus over there, and wow, you have all this blue. You know where he gets the blue? Lapis lazuli. So Da Vinci actually says, hey, if I can get my patron to pay for the paint, I'll use it. So Mary gets a lot of this blue paint, to the point that oftentimes we recognize it's the Virgin because it has blue. Why was the Virgin painted with blue? Because it was an expensive color. It was like putting gold around the painting. And Da Vinci did that. Another Da Vinci, and Mary and baby Jesus. Again, all of this probably lapis lazuli. We go to Michelangelo. Michelangelo, his construction again, but this is after the renovation of 1980. The Michelangelo Sixtine Chapel is really bright and colorful. I haven't had the opportunity to be there, but I remember seeing pictures of before and after 1980, and it was quite an impressive change. The Last Judgment, Michelangelo. You want to guess what the blue sky is made of? Lapis lazuli. So it's expensive, it's a good color, and they're going to use it. If you pay me, I'm going to paint it, and it's majestic. It's just fantastic artwork. We go to Raphael, Disputation of the Holy Sacrament. This is basically saying the Eucharist as explained by we on earth, and the Eucharist, the body of Christ in heaven. But it's a didactic painting too. But look at it, it's beautiful. It has all these people, all these saints on earth, saints in heaven, angels on top. This is how the Renaissance paintings are looking. Entombment, also by Raphael. I see it. I see all the characters. They look fine. Look at the beautiful sky background. So it's the painting captures the moment, but it's kind of idealized. It's not trying to tug at your heart. It's not trying to get emotions from you, because that was not part of art. Raphael paints this Pope Leo X here, and I put the painting there as a reminder of what's going to happen now. So through the middle of the Renaissance, by 1517, we have this fellow showing up in the picture and saying, hey, there's a lot of things that are going wrong with the church, and I think I know better. Martin Luther was a friend of Lucas Cranach. He's a Netherlands woodcutter and somebody who helped him produce a lot of the pamphlets that Martin Luther was creating to try to bring attention to, hey, I'm right and the church is wrong. So it was a very big threat to the church. But what I want you to understand too is that it was a threat to the church for the people who were not doing a good job at the church. Sadly, you know, at this time we have a few popes that are not the best of the lot, and a few cardinals that likewise are not that good either, and a few bishops. And the problem persists because Rome got gifted something called the Papal States a long time ago, and it stayed there, and they were ruling the Papal States as a kingdom. So they had the wealth, and the wealth seduced the power, and therefore they are like, okay, you know, I'm here, and therefore I want to increase the power of the Papal States. The pastoral section of their work was not being taken care of as much. So look, Martin Luther comes up, and by the 1540s, the church says, we cannot let this continue. This is draining and causing a lot of disruption in all over Europe. Who's going to be Lutheran, who's going to not be Lutheran. The compromise they achieve is whoever is the ruler of the kingdom decides who has the religion. So the Council of Trent tried to bring up a solution. The Council of Trent made a few points, and here I put a few of them. It condemns the beliefs of Protestants and clarifies, not creates beliefs in Catholicism. So remember, the council does not invent doctrine, does not invent dogma, but it clarifies what Martin Luther might have misinterpreted and what people might not know too well. Faith alone is part of the Protestant doctrine, and the position of the church has always been good works are how a person cooperates and helps the grace that they get from God to receive salvation. We know the Protestant reformers got rid of half of the Bible, no, half of the Bible, well, 7 books of the Bible, even though in the 4th century the Catholic Church has said this Bible has those 73 books. They also have some issues with transubstantiation. The Catholic position is the value of the Eucharist, and is the literal meaning according to the Gospel of John. The Sola Scriptura was rejected by Trent because they said revelation is these two, Scripture and traditions. There are two things that make revelation. And by tradition they didn't mean feast days and things like that, but rather traditions according to St. Paul's definition, which is that which is passed on by word. What else we got? Catholic theology, indulgence is a remission of temporal punishment due to sin, the guilt of which has been forgiven. Indulgences. So the selling of indulgences was not part of official Catholic teaching, though in Martin Luther's era the practice had become common and abused. The council called for the reform of the practice. That was one of the main points that Luther brought up, and yes, the selling of indulgences was a joke and it was abused. So this is the theological part of the Council of Trent. But the Council of Trent is fighting the Reformation, trying to clarify and tell you, hey, this is what we actually teach. So how best to pass that on to the people? So the next and last session was dedicated, or it highlighted what the council thought we should do about art and what is Catholic art. So I highlighted this because I think it's worth reading. Images of Christ, Virgin Mother, other saints are due honor and veneration are to be given them. Not that any divinity or virtue is believed to be in them, on account of which they are to be worshipped, or that anything is to be asked of them, or that trust is to be reposed in images, as was all done by the Gentiles who place their hope in idols. In other words, it's okay to venerate the image that the paintings, the statues, and so on have. But we Catholics, and please pass it that on, we don't worship it. So how do you let the people know that? The bishops should carefully teach by means of histories of the mysteries of our redemption, portrayed by paintings, the people is instructed. So the bishop has the job to help guide the artist so that the product is something that can be beneficial and educational for the person who tries to know what does Catholic Church stand for. Oops, come on back, get back. Images, suggestive of false doctrine, danger, error, uneducated, cannot be set up. And finally, all lasciviousness. Okay, I got a problem with this word, but I presume you know what it means. Lasciviousness be avoided in such wise that figures shall not be painted or adorned with a beauty exciting to lust, nor the celebration of the saints and the visitation of relics be by any perverted into revelings and drunkenness, as if festivals are celebrated to the honor of the saints, but luxury and wantonness. Hey, it makes sense. The church is saying, you know what? Be careful how you paint. Don't make this mythological paintings or historical paintings where you have all these nude muses running around. And better not put that anywhere close to church. And secondly, what you're marking or you're bringing attention in the painting has to avoid the idea that this is a wild party where people get drunk and things like that. So this, the church is saying back in 1563. Bishops are told, you know, in every one of your parishes, wherever you are, do something to make sure that this is where we're going after. Not all parishes held to it carefully, but what we have is that some artists sometimes got into trouble with the church because of how they painted. So this is Paolo Veronese, and this is called, as a matter of fact, when he painted it, it was the Last Supper. If you see the painting, this is a humongous painting. I mean, it's sitting right now, I think it's sitting in the Louvre, but it's such a huge painting that it must have taken him time, and it must have been difficult to create. So guess what? Knock, 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 the inquisitors came to visit Paolo Veronese and say, hey, you know that painting you painted? Last Supper, you call it? Do you realize in this Last Supper you have dogs, you have other animals, you have people getting drunk apparently, you have all these strange people here. By the way, is this the Ottoman Emperor? Yeah. And this is the Queen of France? Yeah. And over here, then you have the German Emperor? Yeah. You cannot have all these people here. So either you get rid of the painting or you change it, but you cannot have a painting like that in place. So it seems, according to the people who wrote about this, that Paolo Veronese thought a little about it, and they said, did I say Last Supper? I meant the feast at the house of Levi. I'm sorry, the wedding of Cana. So if this is the wedding of Cana, then you can have drinking, then you can have all this going around. And the inquisitor basically, apparently said, okay, that's it. So he got a way of having to destroy or change it by kind of changing the name because, hey, this is the Inquisition. They really don't like this, and I am going to get in trouble, and my career will suffer. Michelangelo, could he be affected too? He dies in 1564. So after 1564, they hired this fellow, Daniele da Volterra, and said, hey, are there some nudes on the Last Judgment? They are too nude. And he was hired to basically make corrections on the paintings. And that's what happened, and that's why it's the way it is. So it's an interesting case that in the 1980s, when they were restoring the Sixtine Chapel, the experts had to get together with the church and say, well, how much cleaning do you want us to do? Because if you want to clean it to the time of Michelangelo, we're removing this too. The church said, let's not get that far. Clean everything, but leave it to the point after Volterra. And that's what it looks like today. Okay, so now we are going to travel through with our friend Caravaggio. He is born in Milan or in Caravaggio, we're not sure. That's why his name is Michelangelo de Merisi. two parents who are connected with the Marquess of Caravaggio, and he is part of the famous family of nobility of Milan. As a matter of fact, one of the connections that the wife of Caravaggio's dad has is with a relative of a general that fought at the Battle of Lepanto when the forces of the Church and Europe fought the Ottomans to defeat them in a big naval battle back in 1560 something, between 60s and 70s. So he's over here, and then he decides to likes art. When he's 12 years old, he goes as an apprentice to a local artist. Apparently he's not that famous, although there's some work left of his. But what he's assigned to do is paint flowers and fruits and making paints, and see, that's probably how he was taking the lapis lazuli and crushing it, or the lead white. I mean, he had to make the paints. That's how you make the paints for the artist. So he decides that he doesn't like to do that much. The historians, or the people who we know we get information from, are not consistent in saying what happened next, because there is some who say the plague hit Milan and grandfather and father of Caravaggio died. Others say that no, the whole older family died and he was an orphan. We do know that he had a brother and a sister. The brother actually became a clergyman and at one time went to Rome. But for some reason, Caravaggio didn't want to do anything with him. So there's a lot of murky details that really make it difficult to figure out what's going on with him. But the point is that after Milan, he goes all the way to Rome. Roma, where are you? And there he also is an apprentice to another fellow, a Cavaliere d'Arpino is the name of the fellow, but he also has him painting flowers and fruits and, you know, details behind the painting. So he's not happy. One of the things that we find, this is old maps that I found about Milan. Milan is right here, and Caravaggio is right there, the town. One of the things that we have is that even when Caravaggio moved to Rome, he already had a troubled life. He already had a reputation for being temperamental, getting upset easily, and sometimes getting into trouble. Apparently he liked gambling, and what else? He would paint, but when he's done painting, he's getting with his buddies, and maybe they are just, hey, we're going to go to that tavern over there and cause a racket. This painting is right now, I think it's in Rome. It ended up with Cardinal Borromeo because he liked it. We don't know if it was gifted to him or he actually bought it. But why I put it here is because of this quote. Giovanni Pietro Bellori is one of three biographies or biographers that we have about Caravaggio. And Bellori was not a primary source. The primary source was Baglioni, but Bellori knew people who knew Caravaggio and so on, and the reputation of Caravaggio by the 1670s was already kind of locked in that one. And I think this is kind of a summary of exactly how they thought about him. He liked invention, decorum, design, or any knowledge of the science of painting. The moment the model was taken from him, his hand and his mind became empty. This is the type of critique that he was given. Why? Because Caravaggio didn't do many sketches. He was going to paint, put the thing in front of him, and he painted it. And he painted it really with lots of detail. And that's what I like about this one. If you look at this, these leaves are dying, if not dead. Some of this and this one are wilted. This apple over here, you know that there's something was crawling out of it one. This bear over here has some damage too. His art style is very naturalistic. It's so detailed that to me it seems like I put there, I can paint that. I'm going to paint it exactly how I see it. And that's what seems to be reflected. He eventually left this Cavaliere d'Arpino studio and started trying to work by himself. The problem is, some scholars have said in a year he changed places 10 times. In other words, he couldn't stay in a place for longer than a few weeks or a month. So this is one of his last paintings when he was in that studio. But then he's on his own right now, and he's saying, how am I going to be accepted? How am I going to get a good position somewhere? See, he's not wealthy. Whatever money his family may have had, because his father was supposed to be a mason, and it was kind of a middle class family, but all of that is gone. So he's poor. He doesn't have many things that he comes with, and he's jumping from house to house, or whoever gives him a chance to rest. And I'm looking for an opportunity. He wants his big break. The moment that somebody can say, hey, I think your painting is good. Because he thinks his painting is good. But he thinks also his painting is very different from everybody else's. So his early paintings, and this is this one and this one, are paintings of what he sees among the friends and people he hangs by. So they are colorful. They don't have any of these famous dark colors that he used to have, that we know he eventually has. But what is he painting? He's painting people that surround him. Gypsies that are palm readers. The supposedly elegant individual there thinks that she's going to create him the fortune, and that's why he's just waiting and looking at her. Obviously, he's entranced by her, while she, carefully, if you notice the middle finger there, is forcing a ring from the hand of the elegant man. In other words, this is, and whoever saw this painting, if he lived in the ghettos and little alleyways and so on, and in the part of the taverns that Caravaggio frequented, they would see it immediately. Oh yeah, this is how they might surprise you, take advantage of you, and never see you again. So this one is even more obvious. What did you see here? Come on, help me out with it.
Cheaters.
I'm sorry?
Cheaters.
Okay, so how do we know they're cheaters?
Because card.
Okay, so the hands of this guy and the hands of that guy, I mean, so what we have here, he is indeed, has a couple of cards over there, but he's also looking at him, but also looking at this guy who is kind of giving a signal to what cards are there. By the way, did you notice that the gloves are torn? Why do you think the gloves are torn?
So you pull a card with your actual finger.
Almost, because you mark the cards, and if you have a glove, you kind of sense the mark you put in the card. But yes, it's intent on how do we fool somebody. So his partner must have been doing also some card tricks where he has cards that are marked, and that's how they make the money. That's how the lower life kind of be. That's the kind of group that Caravaggio is mixing up with. Well, it so happens that Caravaggio meets somebody who says, hey, you know what, you really want to be renowned. You want somebody to buy your paintings. Bring them to my gallery and I'll show them. And it's these two paintings. And he says, around here, there is a cardinal who is really likes art, and every now and then he shows up looking for something to buy. And it's Francesco Maria del Monte. And this cardinal is renowned for his wealth, his good taste in art, his love of music instruments. I mean, this guy has connections, and he has connections not only in Rome, but in other parts of Italy. So Caravaggio puts in the gallery, and indeed, Francisco Maria del Monte, Cardinal, stops by one day and says, hey, I like those two paintings. Takes them. Do you know the artist? Well, Caravaggio is going to hear about the Cardinal. In the meantime, I just wanted to point out also something that reminds us why is Caravaggio getting into so much trouble. taverns, city places, people who are definitely not as well dressed as this one are his main company. He is getting into trouble and in the taverns and so on up to this time because of taking rocks and throwing them to a police person, one of the police that frequented Rome. Rome, because the Pope was very concerned about crime, had a strong police force. The Caravaggio was getting into trouble because he might go sleep in one place, not pay, and then that's why he leaves and goes to another place to find another place to sleep. Caravaggio got into trouble in one of these taverns. He sits with his friends to order a plate of artichokes, and he says, "I want artichokes. One plate is going to be artichokes boiled, the other one is artichokes with olive oil." And he gets the order, and when the order comes by, well, the waiter puts them on the table. Caravaggio says, "Okay, which one is the oil and which one is the boiled?" The waiter says, "You figure it out, eat it." So what does Caravaggio, a person with short temper, do? Takes the dish and wham, hit it to the waiter. He gets the waiter goes for the inn owner. The inn owner comes back. Now the friends are having a fight, kicks them out of the tavern, then looks for the police so that he can be arrested. That's the kind of problem that he got. He got into another problem too. One of the things that Caravaggio liked to do is, hey, I am good enough to have my own sword. So Caravaggio is flaunting his sword in a place where, I already told you, the Pope is saying, I don't want crime. And especially these people who are not nobody. I mean, if it's nobility, there's a chance. But if it's not nobility, you better not have a weapon because you are the persons who are causing trouble. So this here is a replica of what a rapier from the late 16th to early 17th century would look like. This is exactly what somebody like Caravaggio would have. The intent of the sword is not to fight and slash, is to puncture. You're going to stab somebody with this. The typical shape is meant not only to protect your hand, quillons, ricasso, there's the ring for the finger. It's meant to look good. This is for you to be walking around looking cool because you have one of these swords. Now, it's called rapier. There's two arguments about it. It could come from the French or it comes from the Spanish. I believe the one about the Spanish. The Spanish one says that this is an espada ropera. So espada ropera simply means, espada is sword, ropera means it goes with your clothing. So this is the classic sword that if you're well dressed, you're a gentleman, you're a noble, this is what you carry with. This is what Caravaggio would like to do, but no, he can't because he's not part of that, the elegancia, the great people of the time. Well, this is almost about to change. Francisco Maria del Monte, the cardinal, says, hey, I do like your painting. Instead of living in these rickety, narrow streets with little rooms, why don't you come to live in my palace? And supposedly one of these windows in the attic, he was given the opportunity to set a studio and start painting. Why? Because the Cardinal del Monte liked his work. He was really impressed. And like I said, Cardinal del Monte is one who really likes to promote art, promote music, and sees in Caravaggio somebody who has real good potential. Sidebar. When we look at the old masters, we can always see that they have sketches. We know that there's a Da Vinci, this is Botticelli, Michelangelo, and there's a Raphael. So when any of these old masters are going to do a painting, and this one is one that was used, for example, for something like that. That's how the great masters paint. You plan it. You have the sketch, and then you size it. You look at the wall. This is where I'm going to put it. Michelangelo, all his frescoes, He drew them first, then made little holes on the drawing, and then puts it against the wall so he can pass the picture to the wall. That's how you do it. Well, we don't think Caravaggio does that because there's not one drawing from him. There's nothing that we have that comes from him that can give you a sketch. So this is one of his early paintings. And do realize that this is very true. Sometimes we don't know exactly when his paintings were painted. As a matter of fact, there is, within the last 5 years or so, they have changed the time when they think Caravaggio came to Rome. They used to be said 1592, now they say 1595. So some of these things are always going to be close by. This is St. Catherine of Alexandria, a saint who died by beheading. That's why there's a sword there. But she was going to be tortured on the wheel, which is what's there. So restorers started working on this, and they say, let's do an X-ray and see, find out how this is done. Well, it so happens that this wheel continues here. It's not broken there, it's straight here. These spikes are not here. Wait, what's going on? How come the X-ray shows that? Caravaggio finishes his paintings as he's painting them. So he didn't start with a wheel that was broken. He just painted the whole wheel, and then he keeps on working on it because he doesn't do a preliminary sketch. He paints and completes the work as he's doing the work. They found out that there are scratches where the lips are, indentations. Why? Because Caravaggio doesn't have to, he doesn't choose to draw. On the canvas itself, he will use the back of the brush or something that can scratch the lines so that as he's seeing the person that he's painting, he can, okay, the lips go here, the face ends here, and so on. That's how he marks it. Again, he doesn't seem to have any previous sketches to refer to. Even the hand over here holding the sword, we see that there was a thumb was at one time moving up, but then he changed it over there. Then they did an analysis of, microscopic analysis of parts of the painting. This is parts that you can, you take a tiny sample, doesn't harm the painting, or, it's almost impossible to see in two places. And this is the canvas area. This will be the first coat of the canvas. This is the second one, and this is the third one, and this white here is the varnish. Okay, so let's say they look at this and say, well, what is this red? What red do you think this is?
The Aztec red.
Is the Aztec red, the red cochineal, the carmine red, is this one here. So Caravaggio was using this color that came from Mexico. Then you look at this one and say, okay, so he put blue on top of red? Yes, because this is kind of purple. You mix red and blue, and you make purple. Well, what is this blue? It's lazuli. Yes, he's used it again. So we know that he painted this way, and he used some of the more expensive colors out there. He's working right now with Cardinal del Monte. So a patron like that probably can afford a little money because he likes paintings of the saints. And this one over here is this part of the of kind of a coat, and it only has the original part and no red, but the blue on top. So that one looks more blue than the other one. But the blue again, lapis lazuli. So those colors that these guys found are being used after it came to the New World after 1523. Okay, so what about Caravaggio? He is getting to like the place. Now he can walk around and say, wow, I am walking from one palace to another. I'm making some money. I'm painting for the cardinal. I'm doing some good work. I wonder if I'm going to have this great opportunity. Give me one more chance. It so happened that in this French cathedral in Rome, they hired the person who used to be his teacher to make the altarpiece, but they didn't have anybody for the sides. Cardinal del Monte said, hey, you know what? I know the guy. I know this fellow here. Caravaggio, give him a chance. I know he's not known in our parts yet, but I tell you, he has a new style of painting. And one of the things that I would like to remind you here, look, this is very much like the Renaissance. You have colorful figures, a sky that you can see. I mean, this is the old style Renaissance painting. But what is Caravaggio going to do? Wow! I mean, the people who are saying this say, wait, this is very different. This is not what I expected of a Renaissance painter. So you have here, of course, the martyrdom of St. Peter. And obviously, how did Caravaggio make this painting? He went to the street, said, hey, you, I know you, come here. Come, you're going to help me with a painting. Oh, you, please come here. Hey, maybe I'll get you something to drink. You come here. He got the people from his neighborhood. If you look at what they wear, what they look like, they are not the idealized individuals that you see on the Renaissance paintings. So the effect is very strong. The coloration on the back, yes, you have what is now called chiaroscuro, not because he invented it, but because he really used it. Sometimes it's described as tenebrism, which is kind of a word that indicates very dark, somber looks. So there's your St. Peter, and of course this one here is St. Paul. Again, it's a simplified painting. If you remember the other paintings of the Renaissance, you have dozens of people, or maybe closer, more of that. You know, even in the entombment, you have 6 or 7 people coming around. This is not how Caravaggio likes to paint. So he has his image of Paul on the ground, his horse, and just somebody who's helping. But what we see is that the light is bathing him, and he is kind of accepting the light. It so happens that this is not the first painting. He tried to offer this one. As a matter of fact, we have it over there. We have it. He has it. I don't. And I think on that one over there, you can see it better, especially on the top corner, because this painting of the conversion of St. Paul has St. Paul falling down, but if you see, St. Paul is covering his eyes, more like showing fear because he is shocked by the light that's hitting him. At the same time, you have what usually the conversions of St. Paul have, Christ showing on the top. And over there you can see it better. Christ is basically coming to him with beckoning arms, basically saying, Saul, Saul, why have you persecuted me? So that's the first Caravaggio, and he said, I'll put it there. But then he started thinking about it. For some reason, that's me. For some reason, he said, no, I am not going to use this one. I'm going to use that one here. And that's what you can see in the gallery today. Then he gets another contract. This one is for the Serassi Chapel. And what they ask him here is, I want 2 paintings, because this here was not planned. I want to paint of St. Matthew. One has the martyrdom of St. Matthew being killed, and one has the calling of St. Matthew. And the paintings were to be placed here. You have to imagine the chapel exists. That's how it has. The walls were barren. There's nothing there. He walks in here. He sees the altar. He sees the place where the paintings have to be. And you know, there's not that much space. But he records and says, the light is coming from over here. So maybe my paintings should have the light coming from those corners. So he thought about that as he gets ready for the paint. So here we go, 1600. This is the calling of St. Matthew. I think it's a great painting, by the way. If you think about it, Jesus is pointing, and St. Matthew is saying what? Who, me? Yeah, I'm calling you. The things that call attention here is the Jesus as God, the light of the grace of God is coming into the place. And of these 5 people that we have here, 3 of them face the God. 2 of them ignore him completely. 1 of them is going to decide to follow. So Caravaggio is kind of teaching you a lesson too. You know, the grace of God is going to show any time, but it has to be you who decide to stand up and get out there. It's not just going to be you're saved and that's it. Again, because he's saying that's what Luther might tell you, but that's not how things are going. So the other thing that's interesting over here is this hand. uh, scholars who have looked at this realize, hey, you know, Caravaggio was in the Sistine Chapel, so he has seen that hand before. So maybe he copied it. And looking at that hand and looking at that hand over there, what you're seeing is that this hand, which I have there, and this hand are mirror images. They're like, hey, you mean Caravaggio put Jesus' hand and used Michelangelo's? Well, there's two things to know there. One, Michelangelo Merisi has always felt the desire to compete with Michelangelo Buonarroti. He says, I'm going to be the Michelangelo for the new century that Michelangelo used to be, because he died before I was born. And at the same time, he used that. I wonder if there was a more subtle thought in his mind. Caravaggio has been accused of being agnostic or too crazy, perhaps knows religion, perhaps not. I tend to start thinking maybe he knows more than we give him credit for. Because by doing this, what is he telling you? This is the old Adam, that's the new Adam. This one caused the perdition, this one is causing salvation. So he's making a contrast that any bishop or anybody could come and say, hey, you got it right. This is kind of not on the surface, but he got it. In the main altar, there was going to be a piece that was not painted because the artist who was first contracted said, no, I don't have the time to do it. So they told, hey, Caravaggio, can you do this one too? And the requirement was, I want a Matthew who is writing the Gospels. And so Caravaggio first completes this, and they say, you know what, I don't like it. What? So let's think about why they wouldn't like it. Any guesses? There's not going to be a wrong answer. They will be very close. Hey, I was a teacher, you know. I have to get you to think about this one. Okay. I'll help you this time. The feet are kind of sticking out because Caravaggio likes to paint things that kind of shoot out into the area of the viewer, so that the viewer is kind of involved. Caravaggio is trying to make the painting be as close to you as possible, where you and the painting relate. Well, he painted this individual kind of with dirty feet. The outfit is not too clean, but more importantly, the angel is guiding his hand as if saying, this is what they interpreted, that's why they didn't like it, this Matthew doesn't seem to know what he's doing, so the angel has to carry his hand to write the gospel. Okay, fine, you don't like it that way. Caravaggio comes up with this one. Is this going to be good? Well, hey, he's nicely dressed, the angel is farther out, and it's not guiding him. So when you put them close to each other, you realize, aha, so they like this one because he looks better attired, he is writing by himself, the inspiration comes from the angel, but it's not like here where the angel is dictating almost, and Caravaggio is kind of mindless, doing nothing there. But this is the best one. Okay, so 1603 he does the entombment. Remember I tried to mention the entombment that Raphael and Botticelli had done before. They look like paintings and you see, okay, that's the entombment, that's Christ there and so on. But this one is not. This is trying to go beyond what you would see. First of all, if you look at the elbow here, this elbow is going out of the frame. It's almost coming to you. This corner over here is like jagged and pointing out. So Caravaggio has created a painting that's trying to bring the outside world in, or the world painting outside. So you have here Nicodemus, St. John, Mary Magdalene, and Mary of Cleophas. Distraught, sad, I mean, with emotions of, oh, why is this happening? What I like about Nicodemus is, you know what? He's kind of looking at you guys. He's like saying, I have Christ in my hands. What about you? The other thing that comes here is the fact that the body of Jesus, his hand is touching this stone. What can you come up when you say, oh, why is the hand touching the stone? This is a cornerstone. What have we heard? That Jesus reprimands the Pharisees when he says, haven't you read in the Psalms that they rejected the cornerstone? He's identifying Jesus. I mean, this is Caravaggio painting an entombment, but adding all these extra details. He is touching the cornerstone that represents him. Close up, John looking at Jesus. Nicodemus is the one that's looking out. But what is he looking out? Is it really all of you who are in church right now? I don't know. Well, the way we can find that out is, could you imagine if you are in the church when this painting is put behind the altar? You go back to the to the location of the church and are going to have Mass. Before Vatican II, how was Mass celebrated? The priest, that's right, gives it back to the people and heads to the altar. So when you see this painting and you see it here, holy cow, look at that. The priest, at the moment he's raising the host, is going to be right next to Jesus. I mean, the message that Caravaggio is saying here is, you guys, when you see this, you know this is the body of Christ. Forget about what Luther might say, it's symbolic, it's not reality. This is, how else could it be so real? Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. The moment the priest is saying that, that's what he's doing. So now, the eyes of Nicodemus could be going to the host. Wow, how did you plan it, Caravaggio? I mean, that's sensational. This is a brilliant message that he's giving with this painting. That's why, I think that's kind of the most impressive entombment of Christ that I have ever seen. That's the first one I used for my class last year. Oh, but then we got to this one. Okay. You get an idea what this one is already, right? There's two guys, they're having supper, okay? So this is the supper at Emmaus. But the way Caravaggio has painted it, one, hey, Jesus is kind of young. Where's his beard? Mustache. And then look at all the detail of the table. It's like a still life. It's like he's painting a still life, and therefore this is appreciated as a painting where you have all these details, and maybe I'm not sure who this is. But then you realize, what is this guy doing and what is this guy doing? My goodness, this guy is grabbing the edge of the chair because he's going to push it out. I mean, his elbow is also pushing out of the canvas. This one is so amazed. It's like, what? This guy is saying, ah, mamma mia! I know who this guy is. While this one is saying, oh my God, not O-M little g. I mean, he's really saying, oh my God, I recognize him in the breaking of the bread. Wow! So, did Caravaggio really play it that way? I would say yes. The details are fantastic, but I want to bring your attention to this because I didn't know all this, and then I read somewhere just a month ago or so that an expert claims, and I think it might be right, that there's something else here that we didn't notice before. You have the basket, you know he does excellent baskets, and they have fruits of all kinds, and some of them are passé, some of them are okay. But right here, the weave of the basket seems to have come off. And this one doesn't show so well, but there's another piece of the weave that's opposite this curve. So you have one curve like this, and then you have the other curve like that. Could Caravaggio, knowing that, you know, this is the early church, how did the early church apostles communicate with believers? Because they were concerned who's going to find out. They mark on the ground something like this, and then they did like that and completed a fish. Is it possible that Caravaggio is saying, here, let me show you another example of how they communicated in the time of Christ? I mean, he's giving a history lesson too. Well, I wasn't sure to believe that because that's a really small detail. What would that be? But then I saw this. What the heck is that?
Shadow of a fish.
A tail of a fish. Holy cow! You mean, I mean, you look at the fruits. Why would a fruit do that shadow? I don't know, but if you have a fish there and it's here, Caravaggio really tried to do that? Holy cow! Okay, this is one of the ones that was a little more controversial. This is the death of Mary. It's a fantastic picture, but at the same time, it's deep with emotion and sadness. And as opposed to the other pictures of the death of Mary, we don't have anything over here. If you were to recall, and I'm sorry that I didn't have the paintings, some of the other artists who have done the death of Mary, on top over here they would have Jesus or the angels waiting to receive her to heaven. But Caravaggio didn't put it there, because Caravaggio wanted to make it so real that we who walk by him every day and are not necessarily living in a palace every day could identify with it. So this is his Mary, and it was rejected because his competitors or his not so good friends, as a matter of fact, he always, you know, if you know he's temperamental and you know that he gets angry easy, you know that his friends are either as crazy as he is or are going to be the ones standing on the other side. Well, the friends who are standing on the other side really pass the word that, oh wait, you know what? He used a dead body of a woman that was found drowned in the river, and the authorities of the church said, you cannot do that, and they said no. But the funny thing about this is, apparently, they paid Caravaggio for the painting, and they said, but we're not going to use it. Not long after they said no, another cardinal shows up and says, I want to buy the painting. And then they said, well, I'll sell it to you for 270. They gave Caravaggio 200. Now they're going to give this guy, they asked him 270 scudi for it. Scudi is the coin. And before they can do that, you know the name Rubens? There's a famous painter named Peter Paul Rubens. He was around at that time because he was kind of an ambassador for the Duke of Mantua. And he says, I think I know who wants to buy this painting. And he told, hey, Gonzaga, it's not a friend, some kind of a letter. He said, I know a painting by one of these great artists that I think you should have. Gonzaga said, go for it. So Rubens bought it for the Duke of Mantua, and that's how it went. Probably paying even more than the 270 that were offered on the other side. So Caravaggio didn't see this fruit of his labor, but his fame was out there. Even when he was rejected, his fame was out there. Okay, this is Palacorda. Palacorda is an Italian name for a game where people, and this is, you know, this is done even today. People in kind of in the street, groups, are hitting a small ball across, and the purpose of the game is to keep the ball flying. And there's a string, which is the corda part, and palas refers to the ball, and that's a game that's played in different small villages and so on. Well, it was a big deal at that time too. And Palacorda happens to be a place, a game that found Ranunzio Tomassoni with his friends, and Caravaggio, Michelangelo Merisi, with his friends. And apparently, either there was a bet that was not paid, or Ranunzio insulted the Filide Melondrini, who happens to be a courtesan that Caravaggio liked because he used as a model for a few times. And what happened then is that they went to fight. So one of the things that I have here, if you can put the lights for a second, well, it's going to be more than a second, sorry. This book, The Guardian of Merisi, is written by a couple. It's a non-fiction. It follows the visit they have. They go to Naples and then find this painting of Caravaggio, and the story follows more a guardian who is a simple man who is at the church always inviting the tourists to look at the piece. So it's a real story, but the author is also a novelist. So he wrote a fictionalized event that I think is kind of capturing what's happening. I need my helpers here. Sorry. The swelling river rushes past. Twilight has faded. Caravaggio nervously touches his rapier. I need this. So I have this with me. Under his dark mane of shaggy hair, his eyes glisten. Tonight he doesn't hide his scabbard under his cloak, but keeps it in open view. All his senses are alert. 3 comrades follow closely behind. One sudden glance, a curled eyebrow, stinging insults, a flick of the wrist, a blazed trajectory. Tonight, May 29, 1606, a score will be settled, and his destiny will change forever. The new game of Palacorda has swept Rome. This forerunner of tennis is all the rage. Sportsmen use their bare hands as rackets and play inside wall galleries. Near one such court by the Florentine embassy, the artist and his friends will cross paths with a petty gangster and neighborhood enforcer, Ranuccio Tomassoni, and his swaggering gang of thugs. What triggers the brawl? What ignites their tempers? We don't know. Is it an unpaid debt? Or a dispute over an umpire's call? Or is it bitter factional politics? Conservative Spanish supporters often clash with the liberal French who have lost the papacy. Tomassoni runs with the Spaniards, Caravaggio's lot is cast with the French. Or could it be their ongoing feud over Fili de Melandroni? After all, the striking courtesan has served as Caravaggio's model for his painting, St. Catherine and Portrait of a Courtesan. Rumors have it that Tomassoni has abused her. Does Caravaggio want to avenge her honor? Whatever the reason, it will remain a mystery. On this fateful Sunday evening, the duelists pace up and down, taunting each other. 4 armed men stand on each side, ready for battle. Adrenaline rushes. Curses fly, hands reach for weapons, blades slide swiftly out of scabbards, singing in the night air. The fighting begins. Steel clashes in a melee of slashing and thrusting. At this point, accounts vary. Some claim that the 2 enemies fight alone. Others describe a free-for-all where the artist rushes to a comrade's defense. In the chaos, Tomassoni trips and falls to the ground. Caravaggio lowers his rapier to the ruffian thigh. The blade cuts. Blood gushes from a severed vein. Tomassoni's brother quickly lunges and strikes the painter on the head. Dazed and bleeding, Caravaggio reels back. At that moment, shouts echo down nearby alleys. The Siberi! The dreaded papal police are closing in. The fighters break and run. Each knows that he'll pay dearly if caught. Sword fighting in the Holy City is a capital offense. The Tomassoni gang hurriedly carries their bleeding brother home to Piazza San Lorenzo. Suffering from his nasty head wound, the painter staggers away in the night with his comrades. One of them, known as the captain from Bologna, cannot follow. He has deep cuts at knee, heel, and arm. Later, a surgeon was to note, I removed 7 pieces of bone. He would never walk again. Ranuccio Tomassoni dies before sunrise. So this is the famous murder that is going to get Caravaggio in trouble. This is going to be a problem. This should always remain as a metaphor of the violent spirit of Caravaggio. When he doesn't have it, he's fine. But when he's close, we got a problem. And the problem is, thank you. The problem is that I lost my remote.
Oh, right there, the other book.
Thank you. Saved my life. That he has to leave. There is a price on his head now. The papal court says this guy is going to deserve to be thrown in jail or even worse, killed. He flees. Now he leaves Rome and he goes to Naples. In Naples he's okay because it so happens that one of his mother's friends used to connect with the Colonna family that I mentioned earlier, was favorable to his family and also was a descendant of somebody who fought at Lepanto. So he gets a patron that kind of helps him over there. But he knows he's going to be found sooner or later. But he works. The paintings that we have here, this is the 7 Acts of Mercy. And it's in Naples. And the patrons were so satisfied with his painting that they said, never in the history of our confraternity will the paint leave Naples. And that was what, 1606. To this day, he has never left. This one is going to be one of a few he paints. The face of Goliath actually is his face. And we think that the later one that he painted is one of those paintings that he took and wanted to offer to the Pope to have him pardoned. This is the painting of St. Andrew, and St. Andrew here is dying. This painting was offered to the, in Naples, we have a king, viceroy from Spain, so this painting ended up in Spain, and who is going to inspire? Diego Velázquez, who's going to see it in Spain. By the way, you notice that St. Andrew, why is not the cross as a cross? It so happens that in 1593, a writer said that the cross of St. Andrew, if it was like an X, it was historically inaccurate. So he painted this way and makes me think again, wow, Caravaggio must have, he's educated. He reads and finds out information that helps him guide his paintings. When he's in Naples, he says, well, how am I going to do this? If I go back to Rome, they're going to kill me. If it's not the friends of Tommasoni, it's going to be the Pope who's going to condemn me to jail, and psst, there's my head. So he starts thinking, and he comes across the so-called St. John Hospitalier Knights. And this is a famous religious order that became military order. And what I try to put here is used to be caring for the sick in the hospital. During the Crusades, they became warriors too, and therefore not only protected the pilgrims, but also administered the hospital in the Holy Land, and became really famous in 1565 because they held the island of Malta against a Ottoman Empire invasion that was 4 or 5 times stronger than the people who were there. So they are famous. And the other thing that Caravaggio knows is that some of his friends in Naples have connections with the Knights of Malta. And hey, he has seen the Knights of Malta. You know, they look good. So he goes to Malta, and on the way he talks with this fellow. He's the Grand Master, Alof the Winacourt, and Alof is really impressed because he says, "You mean this is Caravaggio, the one I have heard so much?" Because his fame following, both his fame, the fame of a troublemaker and the fame of an artist. So he was ready to accept him and said, "Sure, come here and I'll paint." Not often do you get to be a Knight of Malta unless you are a noble. If you're not a noble, it's unlikely, but there are exceptions. And what Caravaggio asked, "What, can I be a knight?" And what he said is, "Sure, so make him a knight. He's going to be painting over here in Malta for a long time." So Caravaggio becomes a Knight of Malta. He is a Knight of Malta for about 30 days. So happens that during his stay there, he did some great paintings, but he also got in trouble with one of the knights. And he got in one of these usual brawls, and supposedly he either struck or tried to stab one knight. His friends protected him and took Caravaggio away, but the other knight said, "No, this Caravaggio shouldn't be here." Caravaggio was captured, thrown into jail, and somehow, within a day or two, he escaped. And what we know is it's very difficult to escape the jail in Malta, unless either you got good friends that can help you climb the wall and get away, or this guy may have thought, maybe it's not a good idea to have Caravaggio here as a Knight of Malta. The fact is that he left Malta and now he's coming back to Sicily. So he has traveled all the way, Malta is all the way down here, and then he travels to Sicily as he's thinking, I have to get back to Rome, they have to forgive me. And he keeps in touch with friends who tell him, hey, the Pope might be considering a pardon, but it's not happening yet. Caravaggio is restless. He knows he has to watch his back all the time. And now that he has an enemy in the Knights of Malta, I got another problem. But he continues painting. So he goes to Syracuse, Messina, and Palermo, and makes these paintings. I don't know, sometimes I look at this and say, wow, his style is changing. Is he getting tired? Is the pain and the stress getting to him? These two don't have the vitality that you saw in the Sopra Emmaus or even in the Entombment. This is San Lucy because there is a church over there, and there is San Lucy on the ground, and a few people sat. He was accepted. They said, this is a good painting. Then he was in Messina, Adoration of the Shepherds. You have the shepherds over here, and this one is Joseph and baby Jesus over here with Mary. Then he goes to Messina and does this Lazarus. I didn't know much about this one, but when I saw it and I started figuring out what's going on, it's like, okay, you know what? This is not bad at all. This is accepted. What we have here, we have Jesus pointing, and obviously Lazarus and Mary and Martha looking at the body. But what's remarkable, if you look at this carefully, is, okay, where's the light coming from? Okay, light seems to be coming from over here. If you look at the arm of Jesus, you mean the light from the back is hitting here and his shoulder. But then it hits the faces of these guys. What are these guys looking at? They are not looking at Jesus. It's like, wait a minute, why they are not looking at Jesus? I think this should blow your mind too, because every time you see a movie about the raising of Lazarus, or even some of the paintings, you don't see this kind of strange contradiction. Why are they not looking at Jesus? And you just have to realize what Caravaggio knows. Jesus, before he performed the miracle, did a prayer. Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this so that the crowd, that they may believe that you sent me. Okay, so think about that one. I broke it up, sorry, couldn't read all the details. You mean Jesus, before performing the miracle, prays to God and knows that God is going to hear him, and the grace of God is going to come and show the people. These people are looking where the source of light comes, which will be God. It's like, wow, this Jesus is connected with God. I don't have to look just at Jesus. God has answered Jesus' prayer, and this man is raised from the dead. Okay, so Caravaggio, are you telling me you just really got that quote and really decipher it and cause these people to be looking that way to God the Father, so that they know God the Father and God the Son? Oh my goodness, that's well put together. But we have Caravaggio as somebody who really, he doesn't seem to have any luck. He's afraid at all times. He has done all these marvels, but is the Tomassoni's friends going to kill me? Is the Knights of Malta going to kill me? Are the people that I upset here and there going to kill me? So he's going to be, he's trying to figure out, you know, what I'm going to do. So he goes back to Naples and then decides, in Naples, I am going to make a few paintings that I will take back to Rome and show the Pope, because my friends have told me there is hope that your pardon is coming. So Caravaggio is saying, oh yes, this is it. I might get my pardon. I don't have to worry about this anymore. So he gets to a boat, gets the his 3 paintings, his whatever property he has, and he's hopeful because he's going to go north now, leaving Naples and going to one port, another port, and then walking to Rome. And when he gets the first port, he goes to this inn, and before he gets to the inn, he's attacked. There is a story about him getting a gash to the face that so disfigured him that they couldn't tell who he was. He was probably stabbed and beat, and basically he is on the ground bleeding after the attackers leave, and the innkeeper brings him in, tries to patch him up, but Caravaggio says, no, I have to get to Rome. So he sees, when he goes back to the port, my ship, my paintings, my property, they're going away. I'm here. So his paintings apparently are leaving. He's realizing there's no way I can get to the port here. I'm going to have to walk to the next port where the ship should be standing, and then I should be able to get my paintings. In the process of going through by himself, he's wounded, he is weak, and he supposedly has had malaria before. He might be getting malaria again. The guy getting so sick that he cannot go on, and the rest of the story is kind of lost because we don't know where exactly he died. There was a place somewhere on the path to the other port where we think that he got perhaps to an inn, but he was buried out there. Caravaggio ends, the story of Caravaggio ends, and it's sad that this guy, for all his sins, was still such a painting genius. Was he agnostic? I kind of don't believe that anymore. I think he had some faith, and his work was really appreciated by a few people. This is Peter Paul Rubens painting the Entombment, and Peter Paul Rubens continues painting in the Netherlands, influenced by Caravaggio. This is Velázquez using people from the street to do his painting, just like Caravaggio did. This is Rembrandt, the Return of the Prodigal Son, with all the chiaroscuro that Caravaggio used to do. So he really had an impact, even though we don't hear more about it. So from the time he disappeared in the 1610s and the bad publicity he got from the people who wrote the biographies, we don't know anything about Caravaggio close to the 1950s. Then we have this happening. There is a fellow, all of you who read Italian already probably figured it out. There's a fellow named Longhi, Roberto Longhi. He's like a professor. He's working on his PhD, and he decides to do his work on Caravaggio. And he collects the work of his and does a presentation in Milan in the year 1951. And what this is telling you is mostra, is show of Caravaggio, the flyers that were saying these paintings are going to be shown here. Incredible collection of paintings in one place, collected by the technical commissary Longhi, who is the organizer. One enormous success for more than 400,000 visitors in 3 months. So this guy puts together this, and Caravaggio comes to the news again. So from 1610 to 1951, it's rare to find works about Caravaggio. You have the biographies that were written 1650, 1670, and so on, but that's it. Then after 1950 to 2015, 2016, more than 30 to 40 different biographies have been written about him, and a lot of works and exhibits have been done, plus more works that have been discovered. Even today, this year, there was a fantastic exhibition, Caravaggio again, where they collected, what they say, about 2,000 of his paintings, and this was in Rome. Today, Caravaggio is as famous as perhaps he should have been when he was at this time, when he was young. And his fame continues because there's still paintings out there that people are beginning to concern themselves and say, hey, is this Caravaggio or not? But that's the history of this guy. With that, I don't have anything else to add. I just wanted to thank you. By the way, if you're curious about what red cochineal bugs look like, I have some here. If you want to see what a lapis lazuli is, I have that there. And that's it. Thank you so much.